Hey there everyone, and welcome to my craft room. My name's Julianne Richards and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in southern Tasmania. This is the tutorial video for my, I can't remember what month we're in, October, Fun Fold class. Actually, it's more of a sentiment only class with this one because we do have 3 straight normal fold cards. But the special thing about this class is that we're featuring the Snowflake specialty vellum on all 3 cards. So it's pretty special and a little bit different to my normal monthly card class that you all do with me each month. But anyway, we mix these things up a wee bit. So we've got 3 cards with the vellum. The vellum's really nice. It actually comes with 3 patterns in a sort of foil, which is this one here, this is card number 1. We're going to do this one first. And then it has the same 3 patterns, but in a sort of a plush vellum, so with a sort of velvety feel. So we'll do these, we'll do that one second and that one third, so if you need to know. I have made up a little graphic showing you the dimensions of the pieces of vellum that you have to cut, so I will have emailed that to you with the links to this video. So before you start your cards, pop on, have a look at that graphic and cut your pieces of vellum to size, and then you'll be all ready to go. Anyway, so let's get started. Really shouldn't take very long, this class, because once you've cut the vellum, the vellum makes the cards, simple cards, absolutely beautiful. Okay, so as I say, this one with the foil vellum is our first card. So your kit should have, look a wee bit different to this, a card base. I haven't folded this one yet, so we'll fold that. Give it a bit of a burnish. Fold it straight would be good, Julianne. Give it a wee bit of a burnish. You've got a white card base there, just a normal basic white thick. Then you've got a panel of Pool Party designer cardstock, and then you've got your 2 pieces of vellum that you will have already cut. You've got a wee strip of silver, perfect. One of the wonderful snowflakes. So we do have to bring that out of its little square of paper there. And another strip of basic white for your sentiment. Okay, so as I say, we'll get to put this one together as we go. So all you need to start doing is by adding your Pool Party layer to your card front, just with glue or snail or whatever you use. I might have to get another glue. Just on there, just like that. So you can tell that this one, the border where you can see the white around is a little bit thicker than normal. So that's a 1/4 of an inch difference in the measurements there. Then you've got your vellum. And your vellum is actually, when you pop it down, it's actually larger, slightly larger than the Pool Party, but slightly smaller than the card base. So when you pop it down, you're actually going to have the vellum sort of overlapping the Pool Party a wee bit. So sort of pulling up between the Pool Party and the edge of the card base, if that makes sense. Okay, so they're going to pop on there. So you can choose how you attach your vellum. You can use glue if you're happy to do so. I tend to use glue dots with my vellum, and I'll pop a glue dot wherever it won't be seen from the outside. That makes sense, because often your adhesives do show. So with this one, I can see that it's got lots of lovely foil shapes on it. So I'll pop the glue dots behind on the back in position where they won't be seen through. So they will be covered with those beautiful foil designs. And this is going to pop straight onto your Pool Party. One more there. Okay, I might just put Okay, so this one here with the sort of snowflakes is going to pop up the top. And as I say, it's going to overlap the pull party by about a 1/16 of an inch all the way around. Okay, then we're going to bring in the other one. So I'm going to use glue dots again, and it's got lots. It's a snowflakey one, so there's lots of dots to use around the place to cover over. And maybe one in the middle as well. There we go. And we're going to pop that one in there. Now, it doesn't matter if you've got a tiny bit of a gap between the two pieces of vellum, which we have there, because that's going to be covered over by the next thing we're going to add, which is our strip of silver, just like that. So I'm just going to add that with some glue. Just straight on to, I'm checking that I have actually glued that on. Yet I have, straight onto the front of there, like that. Now the edge of the silver should line up with the vellum. So yeah, slightly longer than, as with the vellum, it's slightly longer than the pull party, but slightly shorter than, or slightly less wide than your card base. And hopefully that all lines up on both sides. Okay, now here's your sentiment stamp, your sentiment strip. It's going to eventually pop just straight over the silver like that with a little 1/16 of an inch top and bottom. So it's eventually going to go there, but you have to decide on a sentiment. Now, for this one, I've used From Our Home to Yours, and that's taken from the, what is it taken from? The Leaves of Holly. So From Our Home to Yours. Now, you have to, because we're going to be bringing in our, I might take that out of its little paper now. We're going to be adding our snowflake on the left-hand side. So you need to pick a sentiment that's both thin enough to fit on that strip of paper, but also squishy enough that you can pop the snowflake there and fit the sentiment in there. So it's got to be a sentiment that's probably no more than a centimetre high and no more than, or centimetre, half an inch high, and no more than, say, 1 3/4 inches, or 4 centimetres long, if you get where I'm coming from, because your little snowflake's going to take up well and truly half of that. Okay, so that's why the From Our Home to Yours fits quite well. If I can find it, there it is. Now, I have actually, on my original card, I've actually heat embossed that sentiment in silver. As you can see, it's just as shiny as the, well, apart from the fact that it's through a plastic container, it's actually just as shiny as the rest. So I might actually heat emboss this one as well. No need to do it if you're not into heat embossing, or find that's a bit tricky. I would use something that's sort of comparable to a silver. Maybe use like a grey, something that like that, a grey that would fit. Or if you have, yeah, a grey would be just as nice. I should think like a grey granite or a smoky slate. Yeah, that would be just as nice. But I'm going to heat emboss this one, as it is just about the only sort of more complicated bit of this card. Okay, so I've got my embossing accessory kit here. I've got my silver embossing powder, my Versamark, put my sentiment onto a block, grab my piece of cardstock here. Okay, So sentiment. Oh, I need to use my, actually it's the other side it should be on. Use my embossing buddy to get rid of any oil or fingerprints. And I'll grab my Versamark ink, as I say, right over to the right hand edge of this one, just so you've got lots of room for your beautiful, wonderful, what's a wonderful snowflake? That's what it's actually called, your wonderful snowflake. And my powder. I'll rev up my heat gun. Yeah, it's gone really well. The little thing is excellent because I can pop that aside now and not worry about it until we're finished. I can pack it all away later. So here's my heat gun. Forgive, there's going to be a wee bit of noise while I warm that through and melt it. It's turning now. Yep, that's going. As I say, you haven't got a heat gun or you haven't got silver embossing powder, or you're just not into heat embossing yet, just use a grey. Be just as good. But of course, if you would like to get into heat embossing and you're not yet, please reach out and we can get you set up, and maybe I can walk you through the process at some stage. Okay, so that's nice and shiny now. Okay, so we're just going to glue that straight to our silver layer. Now, keep in mind when you're gluing to silver or gold or any of our beautiful foils that the surface is mega slippery. So, and our glue, as we know, our glue is flexible anyway. So you have to be pretty careful that you don't bump this while the glue is still wet, because you will have movement. So there we are. It's pretty just as it is, isn't it? Okay, we're going to grab our snowflake and we're going to grab a dimensional, and it's like the snowflake center was actually made for the shape of the dimensional. As you can see there, it fits pretty much perfectly. And I say that facetiously because I'm sure it probably was made for it, being that it's stamping up. Okay, so we've got our little snowflake there. We'll rotate him so he's straight and in the middle there. And he's on. There is our, he's got a lovely shine to him as well. Not quite as shiny as the foil, but he's definitely lovely and shiny. Okay, bling is the last thing for this one. You should have 3 iridescent gems or iridescent jewels, and you can pop those like around anywhere you like. Just like, you know, if bling is not enough, you can add some more. So I'm actually going to add, you will have 3 different sizes. I've added the big one to the center of our snowflake just to give him that extra bling, and then I've added the next size down and the small one to the center of the snowflakes that are around. So I'm going to add one to the center of that. So depending on how you've cut your vellum, you should have a couple of snowflakes at least that you can decorate the centers of. Here we are. So that's number 1. Lovely, quick, effective, and gloriously shiny card. Okay, so 1 down. So that's number 1. Hope you like that one. Now be careful when you're popping it into envelopes and things, because your snowflakes are very delicate and you don't want them to, I was going to say melt, but they won't melt. You don't want them to crumple. Okay, number 2 is this cute one here with the window, and through the window is the beautiful Plush Vellum. So again, you've got your card base, which I'll score. Yours will be scored already, but I'll score mine. Then you've got a panel of basic white that has had a window cut out of it with deckled rectangles. So that rectangle there is a deckled rectangle. And then I've run it through my cut and emboss machine with part of the Snowflake embossing folder. And for the life of me, I can't remember. It's the one that comes in a double pack with the pine needles. So it's a lovely one for winter or for Christmas. So yeah, so that's why I've run it. I've just run it through like diagonally from sort of up there to down there, just to give that bit of pattern on the top left hand edge. So what we're going to do, the eventual setup, is that this piece is going to be set up on dimensionals, and this piece of vellum that you've already cut is poking out behind the window. So we need to position it so that it's fitted behind the window. Now, if you're concerned that you might not be able to do that by eye, just grab a pencil. Don't worry too much, as long as it's a nice sharp pencil, and I don't know that I can find mine. Where are you, pencil? I may have to use something else. Oh, I've got a pen. No. Anyway, what I'm going to use, pretend this is a pencil. I know it's not. Position your basic white window over the front in the right position on your card, and then just with the pencil, or in this case it's a sort of a stylus thing, just pop a little mark on the bottom edge and the side edge of the window, so you know where the edges of the window are. Then what you can do, I know there and there, that's the side and the bottom, grab your vellum, and as long as you cover over those 2 marks with your vellum, you'll know that your window is in the right place. Okay, so again, I'm going to pop my window, not that it matters too much with this one because the edges of your vellum are actually out of sight. So you could probably just pop some snail runner or something around that edge and it wouldn't be seen, so you'd be perfectly safe. But I'm going to do my trick with my glue dots again and just pop them. It's so weird. I think I mentioned in a video yesterday when it was quite warm in the craft room that these glue dots tend to distort when it's warm. And for me, your warm scent, as I mentioned at the time, anything out, in the high teens, and it seems to be that in the craft room the glue dots share that opinion. But it's quite cool today and they're actually keeping their shape quite well. So cover that, and we'll pop that there. Okay, so that's just on there. It's just held in a couple of places. It doesn't matter too much because it's not going to go anywhere once this is placed over the top of it. As I mentioned, I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of that to give this some height. You might need a few, or if you've got foam strips, you might use those instead. But I'm just going to pop some dimensionals around. You will need to go around the very edges, but you'll also need to pop a couple here at the edges of your rectangle as well, just so it doesn't sag. If you get my meaning. Nothing worse than a saggy rectangle. Oh, I've forgotten to put the Julianne, I forgot to stamp the sentiment. Probably should have done the sentiment first. Anyway, we can do it next. So if you're watching this video while you're doing your cards, probably you've reached this point as well and you've realised you haven't done your sentiment either. But if you're watching this and then you're going to go and do your cards, well, you've obviously watched me enough to realise that it's safer to do it that way. And we should have put our sentiment down here. Anyway, we'll do it now and hope it works out. So for this one, I'm going to Brightest Glow, and I'm going to use All is Merry and Bright. And it's just going to pop down here in this bottom right-hand corner. Actually, I might change it. I might use 'Tis the Season for this one. No great hassle. It's just a wee bit smaller. I'm going to use Beautiful, Beautiful Starry Sky, because I think that sort of goes with the whole starry, snowy sort of effect of this card. Grab my 'Tis the Season, and keeping my fingers very crossed that it goes okay, I'm going to pop it here. Eek! And it didn't. Anyway, okay. Lesson from Julianne. Definitely do your... Oh, I know what I'm going to do. Rewind. Here you are. Here's another one that I'd actually made for our Zoom next week. Or next... Is it next week? No, it's a ways away. Next month, I think this one is. For our Zoom. So I'm going to pop that. I'm going to stamp this one first. And then I'll pop it over the top. Of course, you can't do that at home. So make sure you... That's better. Make sure you stamp your sentiment first. And I have to make another one of these for our Zoom. That's okay. Joys of live crafting, eh? You guys have watched me enough to realise that it's always an opportunity for improvement. As we used to say in my old job when things went wrong. It wasn't an error, it's an opportunity for improvement. There we are, that's better. Okay. Okay, like that one. Nice so far, but definitely needs some bling, this one. So we'll grab our iridescent gems back again, and we'll use 3. You should have 3 in your pack, and we'll pop those around as well. I'm trying to remember where I popped them on the original one. So the third one, which is the big one, I've popped it down here on the actual vellum. There we are. That one's really nice. I like that one as well. So yours will turn out perfectly as long as you remember to stamp that sentiment first. If you have followed the video too closely and you find yourself that you have mucked up your sentiment and you haven't got a spare one of these, just maybe cut yourself a little circle or a little rectangle and go over that with your, pop a sentiment on that. But there we are. So that's card number 2. Now, card number 3. This is a cute one, this one. So this is our soft sea foam card. And it also has a wonderful snowflake. So you've got one of those in your pack. What you need to do with yours is we're going to cut it in half so it pokes out either side. So rather than using 2 of them and wasting them, you cut your snowflake in half and make sure it peeks out from the top and the bottom of that sentiment box. Again, I'm going to use Brightest Glow, and I'm going to say wishing you this season of light, hope and light. Okay, so you've got a soft sea foam card base. And you've got a layer of soft sea foam, which is smaller than your card base. You've got a piece of basic white, and that's for inside. You've got your snowflake, which we'll take out of its little protective paper. Put the spare one back in for our Zoom. You've cut yourself 3 pieces of the Plush Vellum. So 1 piece each from the pack that you've provided, so one of each design. And as I say, you will have the graphic of the sizes they need to be. And you've got a sentiment box as well, which is the one we're going to use. Now, I'm going to stamp my sentiment first so I don't make the same mistake again. Okay, so I'm using soft sea foam, obviously, to go with the beautiful paper. And wishing you a season of hope and light. Yeah. It's not a very dark sentiment. You could go a darker one if you like, but I think it sort of keeps with the whole softness of the card. Okay, so we can start this one. What we're going to do is grab the piece of cardstock, the smaller one. We can put our card base aside for the moment, and we're going to bring in our 3 pieces of vellum. We're going to attach those. This is a landscape card, this one, so it's going to go sideways. Sort of the 3 pieces should be cut pretty much perfectly to fit across there with the same distance between them and top and bottom and side. So there you are. So we want to attach those like that. Again, a bit of a pain, but I'm going to use my glue dots. Popping them in places where they won't be seen. There's not one in the corner there, so I'm just going to have to go with it. So I find it better when I'm doing something like this to actually pop the first one and the last one on first. Start with either end. That sounds a better way of putting it. So do number 1 and number 3. And then you can adjust the position of number 2 so that it looks right in the middle. Definitely got the use of some glue dots with this one. And they're not sticking to me, which is what they usually do when they get a bit warm. So this is the 3rd one. So try and keep the distance the same, top and bottom, so they look like one continuous row. There we are. And now number 3. Keep it the same distance at the bottom, so it's a nice straight line. Make sure the distance left and right of this one is consistent, the same, and they're all straight and in line with each other. There we go. Okay, so this layer is going to pop on top of our card base with some dimensionals. Okay, so bring this one in with, here we are, just like that on top. Okay, not far to go now. So we're going to grab our snowflake. As I say, if we popped it behind our sentiment box like that, you really wouldn't see very much of it, which is a bit of a waste of snowflake. So what I'm going to do is grab some scissors, my paper trimmers, and I'm going to cut it in half, which might well break your heart, but it's worth it. So I'm actually taking it from the little, because the little prongs of the snowflake, they have a big long one and then a little short one and then a big long one, and they sort of alternate around like that. So I'm going to take it from the little short one on one side straight across the middle to the little short one on the other side. So you end up with two halves like that. I'm going to grab my sentiment box, and I'm going to, before I add it, I'm going to pop the snowflakes down. So make sure you line them up so that the little nice shiny sides are facing top. Try to line them up. I'm not looking at this straight, so I'm going to straighten that. Try and line them up so that they look like a continuous. That one's upside down. Make sure they're both not upside down. That one's upside down. I nearly put them with the shiny sides down. That would have been bad. So try and line them up with the middle of the sentiment box on both sides. So it's good to use a grid paper like this because you can actually line it up with the grid like that. Okay, so that's what they're going to look like. Then, because the sentiment box is going to go on dimensionals as well, you can actually secure it down with a dimensional. So pop the dimensional half on and half off the snowflake. Just like that. Bring it up so you can see. You may want to pop some more on either side just to make sure it's going to stay where you put it. There we are. So see, my snowflakes are trapped under my dimensionals. And when you flick it over, it looks just like you've got a big long snowflake rather than a tiny weeny one. There we are. And then we're going to just pop this straight in the middle of the card. Now you may have a bit of a play because you need to line up your snowflake so that the big tall arm doesn't go over to the top, doesn't overlap the top and the bottom of the card. So have a little bit of a play first before you commit to gluing it, because you don't want to leave too much hanging over because they are quite delicate. Last thing again, we're going to add some bling. And this one, which I think is one of my favourites today this month, is done. Oh, no, it's not. I haven't put my inside panel in. I'll just grab my glue and pop the inside panel in. Of course, with all these, you can pop another sentiment inside. If you've got a lovely stamp you could bring in, that would be fine as well. Just whatever you would like. It's definitely your card now. There you go. Okay, that's all three done. As I say, a fairly quick one once you've got those pieces of vellum cut for yourself. you've got the Snowflake soft sea foam snowflake. You've got your cute little window. Remember to stamp it first. And you've got this really nice shiny vellum one. Now, if you would prefer the shiny vellum on that one and that one, or the plush vellum on that one, go for it. You've got some spares, so you can play with those. If you've bought the class, you should be able to have plenty to actually have a bit of a play around and see what you prefer. But yeah, so I'd love to see, if you do decide to swap it around a bit, please post some pictures and let me see how it turned out. Anyway, so there is our class for October. Hope you enjoyed that one. Going back to something a little bit more traditionally fun fold next month. So, you know, you'll get those origami fingers happening. But this month, I think that's really, really nice to feature that beautiful snowflake specialty vellum. But anyway, hope you had a fun with that class. Watch out for the, make sure you find the cutting instructions for that, and I'll make sure that I'll pop them up on my website as well. But anyway, hope to see you all again next month. Take care.